Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this live stream. And today I'm going to talk about why free will exists and actually why it matters. And why am I saying why it matters? Well, I used to my background is in value theory, which is a subdivision of the behavioral sciences, and it's actually an intersection of the behavioral sciences, neuroscience, and philosophy. But basically, I used to think that this topic, this subject, was really not very practical. You see, I studied ethics. I'm a researcher in specifically in value theory and ethics, ethical theory. And I kind of always looked at this question of whether free will exists as, it's, in a sense, ironically, not very important. Some sort of metaphysical, philosophical kind of thinking, and not very practical. Not something that was important to discuss because, hey, regardless whether we have free will or not, we're going to just go about our lives, right? But as I've gone on, and for you guys who are watching from TikTok live, you cannot see my slides, but it's okay. I'm going to explain everything, and we'll get into it. So basically, why is this important? Well, because it does absolutely. The answer to this question of whether we have free will, I believe, and I've shifted my perspective here, I believe it really does have an impact on how we behave, how we judge other people. And I see this all the time. I see this all the time in this conversation about free will. There are judgments that follow from this on, from other people to other people about how we should behave. And so I want to clear the dust here. And I just want to introduce us to this topic. And by the way, good morning, Nikhil. I see your comment. Good morning to you. And you're drinking your chai. I'm drinking my coffee. And I hope you're doing well. So glad to see you again. So let's actually just blow this up a little bit. So what is free? What are the positions out there on free will? So some people believe in what's called hard determinism. Hard determinism is the idea that, and it has validity to it. It has real validity to it, but it's the idea that we are caused, right? Not only are we caused, but those causes strictly determine, those physical causes strictly determine our outcomes in terms of behaviors, in terms of thoughts, in terms of all of our outcomes, in terms of our choices, and so on. Now let's talk about hard indeterminism. This is okay. I'm gonna try to explain this as well as I can, because it's a little bit of, you have to have a little bit of a background in physics, right, to understand this. But hard indeterminism is the point made by people who study quantum physics, for instance, who say, okay, yes, the universe, actually, we don't really know if the universe is determined. We know it operates by physical laws, but until we understand more about quantum physics, we know in quantum physics randomness occurs. There is randomness. There are random events, and so if there's randomness, and there are things that are not able to be predicted in terms of physics, well, then it's not determinism, it's indeterminism. Our behavior, in a sense, yes, is caused, but it's kind of randomly caused, potentially, right? So that's more of like indeterminism. And so it's not determinism. It's pretty distinct from determinism. Next one is libertarianism. And no, this is not the political philosophy libertarianism. It's just the position that we have free will. Our actions are not caused. All actions are caused by us and us alone. Now, I also think this is quite an extreme position. I'm not a libertarian in in that regard, in terms of free will, right? But compatibilism is kind of where I sit. All right. And we'll talk about compatibilism a little bit. And Daniel Dennett, if any of you know Daniel Dennett, the famous philosopher, late famous philosopher, Daniel Dennett was also a compatibilist. Notably, Sam Harris, if you guys know Sam Harris is what you'd consider a determinist. Now, I think the compatibilist position goes like this, a little bit like this. Determinism, and so the fact that our actions are caused doesn't mean that we don't have free will. Right? It doesn't mean that we don't have free will. And the fact that we have free will doesn't mean that our actions are not caused by something outside of ourselves, right? They are in some way compatible. And many people, as you can imagine, many thinkers have, and you know, now in terms of discoveries in neuroscience and everything, many thinkers have come up with ways to explain different positions on compatibilism. And Daniel Dennett had actually quite a unique position on compatibilism as well. So read up on Daniel Dennett. If you're not familiar with his work, he was a great philosopher, and had a lot of great work. I don't agree with everything he talks about metaphysically and ethically and all that stuff, but I do really think he has a really good argument for compatibilism. I take a little bit of a different approach to it, but let's understand some research in neuroscience first. Let's understand some classic research. This is what's called the readiness potential. And the readiness potential in there was an experiment back decades ago by a neuroscientist, famous neuroscientist, Benjamin Libet. Everybody in neuroscience knows Benjamin Libet. He's pretty famous in terms of his experiments, and he wanted to see whether conscious decision, to what degree conscious decision making has an impact on outcomes and behavior, right? And so he designed this experiment called, and he called the term, so there's a specific term he came up with, which is the readiness potential. Now, what is the readiness potential? He observed that between, between the, let's say here with this guy in the middle, between the decision to, you see the hand movement here. This is the moving hand, right? So between the decision to move the hand and the hand moving, there is some sort of gradient of activity that is going on in the brain. That's what he observed, and he said basically. Now, here's an interesting thing about this, and I'm going to discuss this. First of all, this research in recent years, take into consideration, I want to preface this research in recent years has been shown to have actually flaws in the study design. So it's a famous research, but recently there actually has been a study published showing that his results actually have some issues, and his study design has some issues in it. So this kind of shook up the field. But why am I talking about this if the study design is not so great? Well, he did observe that there is some sort of brain activity that happens between a decision that we make and the behavior that happens, right? So what is this, right? What did he suppose this is? Well, people took different positions. Some people took this as evidence that, we don't have free will, because there's, we make a decision, but then in between the decision and the action, there's some brain activity, and that brain activity, that's not voluntary, that's not conscious, right? Other people took the reverse. There are some other people that took the reverse observation from this, or took the reverse conclusion, the exact reverse conclusion from this study, which is they said, okay, there is some brain activity between the, let me make this bigger. There is some brain activity, let's say, between the decision and the action that was taken. And so this readiness potential, it's not conscious decision making per se, maybe, but it actually could be conscious. It could be something that consciousness causes the brain to perform an operation. The brain causes some. Sorry, it's something that consciousness causes the brain to perform in terms of a neurological operation. So people took two positions on this, right? But understand there are disagreements. It's not just, oh yeah, neuroscience proves that there's free will or there's not. The fact is we don't have enough evidence. What I will say very confidently is we don't have enough evidence either way to understand the degree to which consciousness is caused and how it's caused. However, we do have some very good models in psychology that can help us. So the two fields help each other. Psychology, neuroscience, also philosophy, they all help each other and supplement what the other doesn't have enough predictive power for, right? That's what science is all about, predictive power. So let's talk a little bit about the just causation, right? Because the whole argument about free will rests on whether we're caused, whether our actions are caused, whether our conscious decision making is caused, right? And guys, why is this even relevant? Once again, it all depends on how we treat people, or it all determines how we treat people, how we treat people's motives and decision making, and people's responsibility or lack of responsibility, right? And so let's stay with me here. I'm gonna give you some concepts. So first of all, we can't deny that physical laws determine our behavior. We cannot. Even if you take the indeterminist view, right, which is that there are quantum events there are events at the quantum level that are random. Even if you take that point of view, yeah, well, that does cause some behavior, right? It causes, right? So then we're just determined, right, to act in a certain way. However, in psychology, in neuroscience as well, but we have to observe, right? This is a rock, right? Okay, why am I showing you a picture of a rock? Because what happens if let's say there's a storm and a very, big storm or heavy winds or whatever, and it knocks the rock off its foundation, and the rock, maybe this boulder, rolls off, right? So that's a very straightforward cause. We call that linear causation. It's what's called linear causation. One cause, one effect. One cause, one effect. So we have to observe then humans, right? Us, people. Are we the same type of causation? No, we're not. We don't work by linear causation. Here's one cause, here's one effect. Our mind, our brain does not work that way. The brain works very differently. The brain works and consciousness seems to work in such a way that it's not linear causation. It's what you might say is multivariate causation. Tons of different inputs, tons of different little causes. Outside the brain in the environment, inside the brain, and also maybe some other epigenetic causes and things like that. So there are so many different causes that create a result. This results in what's called, I actually didn't put this on the slides, but you don't have to remember this term. It's kind of a epiphenomenalism. So an epiphenomenalist thing. So basically the idea is that when you have complex systems emerge, like a brain, or a brain emerges, right? The complex system. They even just mapped, guys, you can look up this research. It's very interesting. They recently mapped, researchers recently mapped a fly's brain for the first time. And even just a fly's brain is incredibly, incredibly complex in terms of causation, in terms of how it even functions, let alone a human brain. And so what's the idea here? Is that when you have complex systems, even things like neural networks, they have qualities or properties that do what's called supervene. They take on, they become basically a new system or a new entity above and beyond the individual parts, right? So it's kind of like having instead of 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1 = 10, right? It's a bad analogy, but complex systems often create um, um, how do I say? I'm missing the words, but complex systems often create new kind of entities above and beyond their individual parts, right? So a rock, the cause and the effect of a rock, this boulder, right? A storm blowing over this boulder and rolling it down the hill, we could say yes very easily. That maybe is determined, right? Maybe we could predict that even from looking at the trajectory of the storm. Maybe if we had more advanced meteorology in the future, and then seeing, we could determine the behavior of that rock. But can we determine the behavior of a human being in the same way? No, we can't. And that's actually straightforward. That we have models in psychology that really pretty solidly disprove this. And this, if you've watched any of my videos, you guys know I am a big fan of Albert Bandura. He was basically one of the fathers of what's called the cognitive revolution in the 1960s. And he developed this model of human behavior that is really solid and has lots of predictive power over many fields of social psychology, from organizational contexts in business and corporations to and governments to social relationships with friends, between friends, and sports contexts, all sorts of contexts. This model has a lot of predictive power, so we should pay attention to it. So here, Bandura's model of reciprocal determinism, I'm going to try to simplify this down. All right, you see three types of causation here. There's what causes a behavior. What causes our behavior to happen? Well, there are essentially three causes. One is the environment, right? And that's obvious, right? The environment, we can be caused by the environment. Let's say it's a sunny day outside, or it's cold outside and it suddenly becomes very hot. Well, maybe we have a coat on, and that may influence us to remove the coat. Okay, that's very straightforward. That's environmental causation. But even in that situation, we also have cognition, right? We have thinking, right? That's what cognition is. So it's the part at the top here, person. So temperament, personality, preferences, intelligence, thoughts. So our cognition is also, and again, we're still trying to figure out, where does cognition come from? It's still a mystery from the standpoint of neuroscience. Where does cognition come from? What is cognition really? All we know is that this model does have predictive power. Cognition, thinking, thought, consciousness, conscious awareness does actually cause outcomes. It causes thoughts, cause other thoughts. Thoughts can cause thoughts, and ideas can cause us to do things to change the environment. So cognition can actually cause the environment. Environment doesn't just cause cognition, cause thoughts, but our thoughts can cause changes in the environment. Look also at this behavior, right? Other people's behavior can cause what? Changes in the environment. Other people's behavior can cause us to have certain thoughts or emotions. Our thoughts or emotions can have an influence on other people's behavior. So do you see there's a web of causation? If we go back to the rock, you could see very clearly that how humans operate, how we are, is not just linear causation. Here's a cause, here's an effect. So hard determinism as it isn't really the fact that the idea, we don't have free will, isn't really adequate of an idea system. Why? Because even if we are caused, we're not a linear cause. Just the simple fact of us not being linearly caused is enough to say, okay, well, we are this different type of creature, right? We are more than just the sum of the parts. And that's true. I mean, if you look at computer systems, if you look at very complex systems, it's not, you don't have to necessarily be a religious person to believe that. But we are, many systems are more than the sum of their parts, and that goes for human beings as well, and how we operate. We are intercaused. We cause different parts of ourselves in a way. We are intercausal. So that alone, whatever you call it, it might just be a matter of semantics, but I don't think so. I think that shows that just very clearly psychology, social psychology shows that we're a different kind of creature than a linearly caused one. And so we do have freedom, free will. Now, what does it mean though? Really, you know, to say that we have free will. Well, we are determined and caused, but our choices are also causes, right? We see in that model, our choices are also causes. Do we always, so it's very interesting. Do we always have the freedom of choice? No. Obviously, if we're being forced to do something, physically forced, we don't. But in many cases, maybe we have a mental illness or a compulsion that causes us to it changes our ability to choose. We don't always have the freedom of choice based on maybe personality, maturity, level of cognitive ability. These all can impact our choices, but it doesn't change the fact that we do have a level of freedom of choice, generically speaking, that is a higher level than a rock. Okay, just to take the extreme example, right? We don't have free will. Kind of sounds to me as we have the ability to carefully consider our choices and values. We still have that ability. Whether this is caused or not doesn't seem relevant. In general, we are decision-making creatures, and we have the ability. It has been very clearly demonstrated. This is beyond real debate in psychology. It's very, very well demonstrated. We have the ability to reflect on our choices. We have the ability to reflect on our desires. We have the ability to reflect on ideas, other people's behaviors, our behaviors. Again, we are actually a complex system. We become more than the sum of our parts in this case. So whether we're caused or not is not really relevant. And so why is this important? Well, because people always ask, well, are people in control of their actions? Well, people often take two very extreme positions on this, right? You're totally in control of your destiny. You're totally responsible for your life and what you do and all that stuff. Okay, I see the merit in that. And I'm sympathetic to that. We are personally responsible in some very clear way for the choices that we make. We are also, though, the fact is, yes, we still have to take into consideration there are choices, there are things that affect our behavior that are beyond just our cognition, our thoughts. So the recognition of personal responsibility only focuses on if we're 100% always personally responsible for everything, for our whole situation, no matter how bad that is, or how good it is. That can actually be a toxic idea. Imagine, well, I won't go into details there, but if we recognize the fact that there is a middle way, both can be true. We don't have total control. We can't, because the environment makes an impact, other people's behavior makes an impact. Also, sometimes our autonomous behavior makes an impact on our behavioral outcomes, our thought outcomes, our choices. So, is there a middle way? Yeah. Yes, there is. We can acknowledge, I think this really impacts how we treat people, because we have to look at people, all of us, with a little bit of compassion, in the sense that I don't know. And when I look at a person and I look at their choices and I look at their life, I can, at one sense, I can, in the same sentence and in the same thought process, I can say, it would be great for them to choose something different. It would be better for them to choose something different, maybe. But at the same time, I can acknowledge I don't know some variables here. I don't know their environment. I have no idea what that's like. I don't know what's going on biologically with their brain and the rest of their body, right? That's maybe causing could have some mood issue or something, right? I don't know what's going on with their thought process. I don't know what's going on with maybe other people around them. We talk about behavior, other people's behavior and their behavior. I don't know what habits they've developed over time. I cannot judge. You see how we can't really judge people that much with the lack of information that we have. So yes, people should make better choices, but what does that mean? But we can't judge them at the same time in unduly, right? But what does that mean as well for choice? Well, that also means that people, even though they maybe are in bad situations, and I've been there. I've been with the, $21 to walking into a grocery store to get groceries for a week. $21, right? Doesn't go very far. You can just about buy some whatever cans of beans or some ramen or something. That was back in that was like 10 years ago. So I don't know what $21. I mean, it's not going to get you even that maybe today. But the idea is that at the same time, we understand that people have the ability for greater levels of choice and greater levels of freedom by personally developing themselves. That's why I love this shirt. You can see it, invest in yourself, right? Because as cliche as it sounds, but this is so true. And this is something else from Albert Bandura, is that we have levels of agency. We have levels of conscious awareness, essentially. And by developing ourselves and continuing to work on ourselves, we can develop those levels of agency in a greater and greater way. And so at the same time, we can see both. We can accept that we don't have enough information to judge people, but we can also see their potential in the sense that, and see our own potential, right? And not judge ourselves too harshly, but also see our own potential to make better choices, right? Both of them can be seen and acknowledged at once. We don't have to take the extreme position that you're always 100% responsible for your life, or you're not, or the other extreme position, you're never responsible for your life. We see this a lot in Marxist ideology. It's the dialectical of history. You're not responsible. You have no real will there. It's all the dialectical of history and stuff like that. So we don't have to take either extreme position. Both work at the same time. And I just want to end this with, guys, if you want to work with me personally, I have a great system that I have worked on and developed, and a lot of people are benefiting and getting great results from. I'm going to put the link here in the chat so you can check it out. And basically, there are 3 phases of this. Step one is we work together to help you build a customized personal development plan. Step 2 is to help you develop a customized curriculum and study plan and coaching along with that to help you build skills that you may have gaps in, to kind of develop yourself to whatever your goal is, whether you're pursuing a PhD, or whether you're pursuing a new business venture, or you're building a nonprofit. You want to be a better leader, communicator, whatever that is. And then number 3 is project completion, where we connect you to strategic connections, people, and resources to actually make your goal happen. So check that out. Check that out in the link that I sent. And also, if you don't know if this is for you and you just want to kind of explore the possibility, I'm going to put the link in the chat here as well to my calendar, and you can sign up for a free 30-minute call here and just explore with me basically how this system works. But on this call, we'll put a plan together for you, a rough plan of a personal development plan for you based on your goals and where you want to go and what you want to do next, whether that's a career pivot, whether that's just having more impact in with others around you. And if you like it, if you think that's a good plan, great. You can just take that for free and no obligation. And if you like the potential of doing more than just having that plan and working personally with me, then you'll have that opportunity as well. But thank you guys for tuning in. For those who just jumped on, catch the replay because we discussed some really awesome ideas here that can make an impact in your life. And stay tuned for more content on a weekly basis. I got a great video coming up next week that you guys will love. So stick around and keep embracing critical thinking and making an impact on the world. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, guys.